Hello everyone. So this is the 7th part in my series regarding Stephen Bancarz deception to the body of Christ via Doreen virtue. In this video segment, I'm going to talk about Stephen Bancarz being tied to enabling seemingly Simony. Now, some of you who are New Age may not understand the significance of what it means that Stephen Bancarz seems to enabled and emboldened Doreen Virtue to go forward, to commit simony against the scripture, making hundreds of New Age souls absolutely, positively disposable before the throne of God. Now, some of you may say, how can that be? How can something that Doreen Virtue does endanger the souls of New Age people? Well, I'm going to explain that. So, some of you who are familiar with Doreen Virtue's work are aware of the fact that she has made huge swaths of money via these various spiritual gift schemes and classes. I say schemes because it was very apparent as soon as I listened to the hustle that she gave out at a formal Hay House publishing event in Seattle from the stage, with Hay House publishing staff being complicit in her pitch and a plug of her spiritual gift scam. It was immediately apparent to me that this woman was flooding the New Age community with false spiritual gift certifications, not only harming people by the lies from her own mouth and that she would publish, but harming other consumers within society by giving false spiritual gift certifications to people, seemingly, by her own admission, for just coming to a weekend event and giving her money. Or go online and buy a DVD set, pass a paper quiz, and voila, you too could have been an angel therapy practitioner or an angel medium. Doreen Virtue was selling angelic mediumship certifications through Angel University, which is a more fraudulent university than even Trump University, and she was selling these certifications, seemingly give her $400 via your credit card. She mails you a DVD set, pass a paper quiz, and voila, you too have a gift to talk to the dead people. Whether or not you want to argue with me about whether or not mediumship is of God or not, it's really, really time for us to talk about people like Doreen Virtue and James von Prague and some of the other Hay House authors who have various spiritual gift certification schemes, where everyone who takes a class with them suddenly becomes spiritually gifted. I have to say, I'm a little bit more versed to be able to speak on this than the average member of society, considering I spent an entire week in one of James von Prague's mastering mediumship classes. 100 people were in that room. We were one of the first 5 classes that James von Prague fine-tuned his so-called teaching of the entry level of mediumship class stuff on. And none of the people in the class I took were certified as mediums. Thank God. But he would go on and then teach this class online, I guess. And voila, all of the people seem to be graduating and being certified as mediums. And one of the individuals that James von Prague has certified that I am aware of was in my class. and was present the day that Doreen Virtue gave out wrong suicide information from a stage. And that individual did absolutely, positively nothing to ensure that the Black mother of the actively suicidal child received correct information. I just want to make that clear. There were at least a dozen of the James von Praagh Mastering Mediumship class members present to hear Doreen Virtue put out and leave out wrong suicide information. Of the dozen, I am the only one who showed up to protect human life. Another person, Lindsay Paul, would affirm to me later on, after a woman named Shauna Fisher, who had been the microphone runner of James von Praagh's week-long class. So she didn't pay. Shauna Fisher did not pay for the class. The rest of us all paid. And Shauna Fisher was the one that decided to run the group afterwards, where they established an online Facebook group for just the James von Praagh Mastering Mediumship class graduates. The person who didn't pay a penny. And it was in that group, and I want to make this really clear, because I know that some of you are facing the situation of having comments blocked and having it affect your faith. I want to make it really, really, really clear. I posted, after I watched Doreen Virtue risk human life in Seattle at the John Holland Doreen Virtue event, I posted about my feelings, being highly traumatized and shocked and not knowing how to process what I had seen, not knowing how to process that other members who were graduates from our class didn't show up to help me. And to tell you that that was mortifying to me and traumatizing for me to not have anybody from our class show up to protect human life when I knew there were a dozen of them there, you cannot imagine how I could not digest and process this all. I needed my classmates to be able to help me, walk me through. I needed them. And when I needed them the most, they were not there for me. And why were they not there for me? Because Shauna Fisher, who had been the microphone runner for James von Praagh, the woman who didn't pay a penny, was the admin of the Seattle Graduate Mastering Mediumship group. And no one could just be added. You had to actually be a graduate of this course, of that particular class. I was part of one group that was graduate of just the Seattle class, and then I was part of another group that was a group of up to 500 people that were the graduates of all of his classes the first year. And when I posted about what happened in Seattle and where were you guys? I can't believe this happened. I can't believe that James von Praagh sent us to see this fraudulent woman who gives out wrong suicide information. Shauna Fisher, who does not have a real spiritual gift from what I have been able to ascertain, a woman who would go on and seemingly have an utter nervous breakdown on her radio show with Lindsay Paul. When I posted what had happened, I started to have some of my fellow classmates respond back to me that they were mortified what happened. Other people who hadn't been present to see it wanted to find out more information. And this was a private group. I cannot stress this enough. This was a private group that only those who had been in the Seattle Mastering Mediumship class could see. This was where I should have been able to come when I saw what I saw, due to the fact that James von Praagh had sent us to go see Doreen Virtue and had kept plugging her during the Seattle Mastering Mediumship course. But Shauna Fisher took down my posts and the communication about what happened at the Doreen Virtue John Holland event. And she wrote me a nasty note and said, you are not allowed to post anything negative about James Van Prague's dear friend Doreen Virtue. She didn't say anything wrong. Stop saying untrue things. Wow. So I reached out to Shauna Fisher on Facebook. I said, what are you talking about? Shauna, did you see Doreen Virtue tell a black mother of an actively suicidal child that people who talk about suicide don't do it, that they just want attention, they need counseling, but they don't ever do it? And Shauna said, yes, that's exactly what I saw. Shauna affirmed exactly what I saw is what she saw. And I said, Shauna, you just affirmed to me what I posted in the group was true. She said, you said what she said was wrong. It's right. I said, no, Shauna, what Doreen Virtue put out was the #1 myth on suicide. It's a lethal myth. It's a known lethal myth that can easily get people killed. Shauna, who claims to have a spiritual gift that she does not seem to have. Shauna, who has gone on the radio pretending to read people and who was so bad that I used to hear about it from Lindsay Paul when they had a show together, how Shauna was becoming more and more unstable. And I'd be like, Lindsay, you cannot let Shauna read members of the public when you know she is mentally unstable herself. And you're telling me she's giving out wrong information. What did Shauna do when I tried to communicate with her? Like, she'd already affirmed that what I heard Doreen Virtue say was what she heard Doreen Virtue say. She said to me that the information on suicide that Doreen Virtue put out must be correct, because John Holland did not stop it. And Hay House staff did not stop it. And after the event, James Van Prague kept massively promoting Doreen Virtue to the public. And Shauna said to me on Facebook communication that I must be wrong, even though she heard the same words I did. And she said, you must be wrong, because John Holland would have stopped it. He would have had to if it was wrong. And Hay House staff would have stopped it. And James Van Prague would have stopped it. And I said, Shauna, nobody stopped it. And I got Shauna from a website that covered the topic of suicide, direct, concrete, provable information, that the exact thing that Doreen Virtue had said was one of the #1 myths on suicide. And she refused to accept the evidence or to really read it. And her abusive, highly abusive behavior towards me, and I cannot stress this enough, I was already carrying the weight of what if what I said to the black man's mother wasn't enough, and she doesn't get him help, and this man dies. You have no idea how much weight that is on someone. You have no idea. And I needed the support of my classmates, but I didn't have it because of Shauna Fisher. She literally was taking my posts down when I would post them. And so I went to Lindsay Paul, who was present in the room when Doreen Virtue gave out wrong suicide information. And I said, Lindsay, Shauna's taking my post down. And Lindsay told me, well, she's not very bright. And I said, Lindsay, what did you hear Doreen Virtue say? And Lindsay affirmed the same thing that I had heard Doreen Virtue say on suicide is what she heard. And Lindsay conveyed to me very clearly that she knew what Doreen Virtue said on suicide was absolutely wrong. So I asked Lindsay, I said, okay, you are telling me when you heard the information, you immediately knew it was wrong. So why, after the event, was I the only one who showed up to help the Black mother of the actively suicidal child? Where were you, Lindsay, if you knew this information was wrong? And I want to stress this because I'm talking about Simony. Lindsay said she didn't need to show up to protect the Black man's life because Spirit didn't need to impress it upon her heart. Because Spirit sent me. I cannot stress to you enough, all of you, that Lindsay Paul, who touts James von Praagh as her friend and her mentor, did not have 1 ounce of love or care or empathy and did not do one single solitary thing to protect that Black man's life. And her excuse is she only needed to show up if Spirit impressed it upon her heart to. And Spirit didn't. Lindsay Paul would go on and pay to be on a Sonia Chiquette, John Holland cruise. At no time am I aware that Lindsay Paul called John Holland to publicly make right that he had participated in life-risking fraud with Doreen Virtue. Lindsay Paul would run into James von Praagh down in California and take pictures with him and tout him as her teacher. There is no fucking way I would brag that someone who had promoted life-risking fraud to the public was someone who had taught me or anyone else. And I would tout that as wonderful. Lindsay didn't care. And she uses being a graduate of the James von Praagh Mastering Mediumship course to give herself credence. There was another person in our class who went on, and his name is Jeff, and he is a published New Age author who has won a New Age award for one of his books. He was present. He was a working active medium. He did absolutely, positively nothing to protect the young Black man's life. He did nothing to call John Holland or James von Praagh to integrity, to make right their promoting a life-risking fraud. And Jeff would go on and pay James von Praagh additional amounts of money to be formally certified in one of the classes where they just hand out the piece of paper to you. I cannot stress enough to the rest of you that the one person, Jeff, who I know went on and got formally certified by James von Praagh, has done nothing to call for integrity in this field. It did nothing to protect that young Black man's life. Shauna Fisher charges people for animal readings. A woman who seemingly had a nervous breakdown, it sounded like, when she was on the air with Lindsay Paul. A woman who would not accept facts, easy to prove facts from suicide websites, it is claiming she can talk to other people's animals. And Lindsay, it's just Lindsay's excuse when I talk to her, more about why James on Prague was promoting Doreen Virtue, Lindsay's like, I don't think James is really even friends with Doreen Virtue. It's a business situation. And she said to me, she said, Desiree, this is how the game goes. This is the business. So I want to make it really clear, since I'm doing this series on Simony, and all these other people work as working psychics, and I don't. I do not work as a psychic at all. I did not show up to help the Black mother of the actively suicidal child due to any part of my spiritual gift. There are times I get stuff, but that wasn't one of them. There was nothing outside of me that caused me to show up to protect that Black man's life. I just knew that his life was precious, and I didn't need anything from spirit to tell me another human being's life was important. At the event that John Holland and Doreen Virtue risked human life at, there were tons and tons of Doreen Virtue certified various spiritual gift people who were present. Tons of them. How do I know this? I mean, did I go around intuiting it, or did I question the people? No. At one point during the event, Doreen Virtue, with Hay House staff's participation, called various different levels of Doreen Virtue certified people to the front so that people could see them. And we were told these people had a gift with angels, and we could buy services from them, and we could pay Doreen Virtue directly through Angel University to be certified, and we could start a new exciting angelic gifts career. Or we could pay Hay House Publishing and fly to an exotic destination, and in just a matter of days learn to talk to angels, and we too could start charging big money in an angel reading scams. I'd like to say really clearly that not only on that day that I watched wrong suicide information go out, did not one other single solitary graduate of the James on Prague Mastering Mediumship class show up to help me with the Black mother of the actively suicidal child. The dozens upon dozens of Doreen Virtue, various certified angel therapy practitioner, angel intuitive people, not one of them showed up either. I cannot stress to you how horrific it was to just be a person who does not tout themselves as a psychic, who's just an intuitive, who doesn't charge people for psychic gifts and doesn't claim I talk to angels. Well, I actually do, but I don't hear them back. I'm Catholic, so we all say prayers and ask our guardian angel to protect us. So technically, I guess I do talk to my angel. But not a one. Not a one of Doreen Virtue's various angelically certified people that she and Hay House Publishing had certified before 2012 who were present did anything to protect an innocent young Black man's life when his mother was told total bullshit. But Hay House had gotten thousands and thousands of dollars in that scheme. So this is the backstory. And this may sound like a weird intro to the Simony video situation with Stephen Bancarz, but I want you, before I go into My communications with Stephen Bancarz regarding Doreen Virtue's Simony and my calls to him before her December 2017 Simony event and after it to understand it's very easy for me to testify in a court of law about all of Doreen Virtue's graduates who were present September 22nd, 2012, who made human life absolutely, positively disposable. And Doreen Virtue keeps going into the public forum while she's claiming she sees and hears God, and keeps asserting that all of her false spiritual gift certifications are all valid. When the Bible says none can buy a gift of God. The truth of the gospel doesn't matter to Doreen Virtue compared to her desire to keep the economic resources that she has swindled from so many New Age people in absolute and complete fraud, defined as fraud by the Bible, that she calls 100% true, while she tells y'all she's seeing God and hearing God. Before, when I was calling Doreen Virtue out, I was calling a woman out who was falsely claiming to be an angel medium, to really see dead people in heaven. And I was calling that bullshit out because there would be no way anyone who was dead, who loved anyone in that room, would tell her to say the nonsense and the stupidity and the abuse and the wrong medical misinformation she was putting out. We'd have to believe that all the dead doctors got lost someplace, and all the teachers got lost someplace, and everyone's actual dead people who loved them somehow got lost someplace. And she was claiming that she could hear and see archangels and everyone else's guardian angels. And 5.5 years ago, I was standing saying Doreen Virtue doesn't see and hear angels, doesn't hear and see archangels in terms of God's holy angels. And she certainly doesn't see or hear mine. And I cannot stress this enough. The scam that Doreen Virtue ran September 22nd, 2012, including her life-risking fraud, she did while she claimed she could see my guardian angel. And I called it out. And that was considered kind of radical, to call out someone who's claiming this extreme gift in the name of God's holy angels, Hay House's international angel expert. Now I'm having to call out the same woman who has now come out in the public forum and said, well, she was kind of possessed, but now she's hearing God and she's threatening people. And I'm still here, and I'm still calling her shit out. And I'm going to say really clearly, the stuff she did and said was stupid and wrong and egotistical and narcissistic, and she was highly exploitive when she was pretending to hear people's angels and dead people. And the essence of who and what she is and the games she keeps trying to run kind of haven't changed while she pretends to hear God and to see him. So this is the end of part 1 of my Simony video. But I wanted you to hear this backstory because I think it's really important for you to understand my view and my perspective when I call out Doreen Virtue for Simony, and when I call out Stephen Bancarz for allowing her to continue this scam and scheme and to assert publicly that all of her false spiritual gift certifications are still valid.